All right, good morning. I'm installing this outlet in my utility room, which will serve as a power point for anything I might need to plug in while I'm in here. Put that on a 20 amp, and I'm going to run that right alongside that other 20 amp for the converter. So I'm going to take care of a bunch of little projects today. I've got my inverter wired in. I've got my points. I'm probably going to move those down into there, but I'll let you know. And I've got my sub panel wired. I've got some breakers in there. None of them are hooked up, though I don't have any power, but right next to it is two runs coming from the coach. I've got a third one getting ready to come in for the refrigerator and the TVs in the living room. And I wanted these two boxes ready so that when I run those into the room, I can go ahead and attach them. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be back. Okay, I've got my 20 amps coming in, shore power. Going into my transfer switch. Going into my main panel, and I've got the main on, and I've got that circuit right there, which is the new one I just stuck in, and that's that 4-gain plug right there. And I've got a heat gun plugged into it on medium, high, and I want you to look at the voltage readings. 60 hertz. 0. Line 1, 121 volts, 9 amps. Line 2, 121 volts, 0 amps. 60 hertz, no errors. Line 1, 121 volts, 9 amps. That's telling me through each leg how many amps, how many volts are being utilized. Okay, and one thing I didn't talk about, and I probably should, let me put this heat gun down, it's hot, is when you're filling up a 50 amp or a 50 amp or you know, whatever, and it's a load balancing box, that means that your black up there and your red are feeding two sides of that panel, each with 120 volts. So if you had all your breakers on the left side, you'd only be pulling power from one leg. So you kind of want to balance them out as you go down, okay? And you know, a 20, a 20, a 15, a 15, you know, obviously they don't have to be perfect, but you know, you want to try to balance them out as much as possible. Same thing with the sub panel. You know, you don't want to put them all on the left, you know, and none on the right. You know, if you only had 2 breakers, you'd want to put one on the left and one on the right. Anyway, all right, I'll be back. Okay, what I'm getting ready to do now is ground my chassis. Well, ground my electric panels. Sorry. So what it's going to do is it's going to mount here. Okay, I'm using a terminal block, and it comes into the box. It's going to come down and go into the grounding bar, and it's going to come out of the grounding bar right there, and come in and ground to my sub panel bar. And then I'm going to drop it down from here to a central location where I can tap into it with other devices. All right, let me do that and I'll be back. Okay, we are totally grounded to the chassis frame. I'm going to call that my main chassis. Okay, it's secured on there very well, and it is grounded to my main panel. Then it comes out there, right there, goes up, goes into my terminal block for the ground on my sub panel, and comes down, comes down, comes down, and is grounding my converter. And then coming out of the converter, I'm grounding my inverter. Now, right here, I intend on putting a terminal block for grounding. I have this one here, but I don't want to use it. It's just not what I want. I want one that I can put multiple things on. But you can see I've got plenty of wire to be able to connect my to a block, and then come in with this one and then run a line over to that one, and life will be good. Okay, now I'm getting ready to make some cables for my positive and negative converter wires. Now those come, positives on the bottom, I don't know if you can see it or not. It's there, and negative. Anyway, they come out and are going to go up to my terminal blocks right there. Okay. I'm probably going to go straight up with them and then come across. I don't know yet. Doesn't really matter, but yeah, straight run from there and then straight up I think will work. All right. I've got my crimpers, I've got my 4 gauge wire, 5/16 lugs, and of course those go, that's what bolts onto here. Okay, all right, so let me make those 2 up and I'll be right back. Okay, we are ready to start putting in more breakers from the coach. I hooked up a temporary light right there. That's going to be my test. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got it wired over, coming down, and going into its spot, which is number 5, which is the utility room light. And it's grounded. And that's my hot. I got to get a fuse for it. For now, I'm just going to use this 15 amp fuse. These are so cool. Okay, and now that I have put that on there to show you, put the cover back on and snap it into place. It's hard to do with one hand. Here we go. Okay, get up there. Okay, so now the cover's on that one, and I've got the light wire. Negatives running to the top, comes down to my bus bar. My hot comes out, comes around to my bus bar. And there's a few wires there. I still got to tie some down, but they look pretty good. I've got my chassis ground all in. I've got my converter hooked up. I've got my 300 amp fuse. And sorry, I had to turn on the vacuum cleaner for a second. Okay. Okay. There's my main battery wire coming out of the battery. Oh shit. And you see the wires laying down in there. I've got to connect it to there, and I will. And here's my cutoff switch. On, off. Whenever you're working with the batteries, you always want to turn off, you know, everything to the batteries so that you don't get any shorts or anything like that. So let's see, I think I got my wrench right now. Okay. I'm gonna try and hold this while I do it. It's probably not smart, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Just taking the nut off. I had a 3/4 inch on. See if I can't get this in there. Okie dokie. Alright, well, let's see if it'll stay there for a second. Just for a second. Just need it for a second. Hell no, it won't. No. Oh well, alright. Let me just get it over the screw, but you can see this cable right here is going to go onto that terminal. So let me, alright, I've got my battery thing on, and now I'm just going to tighten everything up. So, we got our batteries hooked up. I've got a little extra length there for when I get 2 more batteries on this side. The same thing with the negative wire. All right. I don't have any gauges or anything like that, but I've got my kill switch here, and that works pretty good. Huh. Okay. So the battery is powering the wall right now. I've got no AC hooked up. I could turn on my inverter, and we all know what's going to happen when I do that. Okay, I've got all my breakers off, everything's off. So let's turn it on anyway. See what happens. Let's see if you can see in there. See how the green light is on? Shore power. Got nothing over there because there's no electricity. All my breakers are off. I wonder if this light up here will work. Well, I don't know, Vince. Why don't we go see? Oh my goodness. You can turn on one, off, or both. That's pretty cool. Let's see how many, I've got it set to watts right now. Let me set it to volts. And I'm at 12.7 volts. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. 12.7. But they're pretty low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my shore power in and get my converter going, because that is going to charge the batteries. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Let me just go get the extension cord and plug it in. Okay. System is running. Got my converters on, charging. Boy, it's really pumping the heat out. It's putting in 14.3 volts into the batteries. Okay, and I'm going to go to watts for a second. Watch that. I'm going to turn on. I've got the vacuum plugged into the. Maybe we can turn it this way. The vacuum is plugged into the. I don't know if you can see it or not. 780 watts it's using. Now it's using 0 watts. Let's go back to the volts. Watch the voltage drop. 13.8, 13.6. Okay. I'm gonna have to get some sort of a heat shield. There's a lot of heat coming out of here. Just warming up my wires, so I'm gonna get a piece of something and deflect that out into the room. That's pretty cool. Okay, it's showing I've got 117 volts coming into the shore power, and it's exactly what this is saying up here. Well, 118, which is 117.7 rounded up to 118. Okay. My inverter is on. And it's supplying shore power to the sub panel now. Because I'm plugged into shore power, this switch is in shore power mode also. Now, the reason we want both of these in shore power, well, let me turn this thing around. The reason we want both of these in shore power while we're hooked into shore power is so that this panel runs and the sub panel runs. Okay? I can turn off my inverter. Okay? See that? Now there's no lights on. Remember, in about 20 seconds, the main panel is going to kick in and provide power to the sub panel. So just wait for it. You'll hear the click. Because remember, the main panel is wired as the generator. Oh, wait a minute. We'd be waiting all day. I had the breaker turned off, which is what sends the power to the sending unit. Give it a few seconds and watch. There it is. Okay, so now I'm in generator mode. So this panel, through that 30 amp breaker, is feeding the automatic transfer switch, sending the power up to the sub panel. That sub panel is now live, okay, from the shore power. Okay. Now watch when I turn the inverter back on. Watch what happens. See? Oh, again, we'd be waiting all day. The reason it didn't kick into shore power is because why? Because the generator takes priority. So I have to kill the power to this main up here, and then watch. Then the inverter kicks over to shore power. How cool is that? Now, you'll notice that my converter shut off because it's got no shore power. Okay? I'm just feeling my wires to see if any of them are getting hot, that's all. And my batteries have 13.3 volts, okay? So, none of these outlets are going, this outlet won't work and that outlet doesn't work because I've got both of those in my main. If I'm in my utility room off of battery power and I need to plug something in, well, I've got 3 receptacles right on my inverter that I can use. Now watch the volts droppage on this. 12.7. How many watts? 740. Now watch the volts will go back up to 13. 0.1. 0.2. Okay. Let me go get something and put a real load on this thing. I'll be right back. Okay. The refrigerator compartment is about 99% done. I've just got to put my aluminum on this side and my aluminum on that side. No big deal. Got my plug ready to go. I'm getting ready to wire that in. And where it goes through, I'm going to seal it up. And I drilled another hole for all my 12 volt stuff to come into also. And that's all going to run in behind the stove and microwave back there. And it goes up. All tied in. All my home runs are going on this side. I'll clean them up once I got them all run. But right now they're all running in the same cavity, and I'll zip tie them together in the future. What else can I tell you? My brain is shot. I was looking for a plug that I had. Oh, here it is. And there's my plug. The refrigerator gets a 15 amp and the microwave gets a 20 amp. And just an FYI. Oh, Black Betty. Brandy girl. All the 12 volt, 110, everything is completely hooked up and functioning. I've had it running all day long. Been running my saw. My 12 volt stuff's been running. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that's the converter. And it's charging the batteries. There's the batteries. And it's runs that light. Oh, here's one thing to show you. Show you what a converter does. See the lights on right there? The converter's running and my battery kill switch is on. You think when I turn the battery off, there's the lights. That's because the converter is what runs the 12 volt system in the absence of batteries. Now, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that fan's going pretty good. And just running like a champ. Like right now, since I shut that switch off right there, that kill switch, it's not charging the batteries anymore because the juice can't get to it. So, turn that back on and it's charging the batteries. And right now we're at 14.5. It should stop at 14.6, and then it'll just go into a float mode. All right, let me clean some of my mess up and and by the way, I do have a utility room floor. Plenty of room. Plenty of room. Now there's about 1,000,001 things that need to happen. Oh, and I put a switch on the wall getting ready for it. You can see that light works. It's got a flicker to it. I don't know if it's the bulb or the power. Might be something, and everything's grounded, so I'll have to figure that out. There's some line noise somewhere. I can fix that because we have the technology. All right, I'm just leaving this stuff running, just letting it, letting it get used to itself and what it's supposed to be doing. Alright, I'll be back and clean up this mess. Okay. Got everything loaded up. And I'm gonna leave that running for a while. I'm also gonna leave the inverter running for a couple more hours, and my lights, and then I'll come back out later and check it. One of the other things I want to do is check and just see how warm it gets in here, with all these, you know, basically power supplies running. Like this one here is pretty daggone hot, and it's in shore power. We got nothing running there except the generator, which means the breaker up there is coming down. Inverter's on. Doesn't need to be. It just shows me what my volts are, 14.5. I'll turn it off and then I'll come back and check it later. Alright, man, I got a lot done today. That's my motion detector, so I'm going to come out at when it gets dark, and it should come on for me. Oh, forgot to put my blower away. I've got to put the blower away. I tell you, got rid of the refrigerator and I got a little bit more room to not necessarily, I don't know, compact it a little bit. It's not bad. Let's see. Close the lid on my garbage can. I tell you, I'm pretty proud of that refrigerator compartment. We got that was the last thing I was going to do today, was put the plug in, but that didn't happen. Mainly because I couldn't find my wire strippers. But we'll get her done tomorrow. I've got the wire run for the microwave. And then that's pretty much it for the 110 over on that side. And then I'll run a couple over here for the kitchen. And I'm going to run 20 amp over here down by the ramp door, just in case we're out there and we want to, you know, plug something in. I don't know, radio, stereo, something. So, all right, let me lock this side. I'll leave the other side unlocked until I go check on it in a few hours. All right, well, a very productive day. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something on the electrical side of things. I'll be back tomorrow and we will continue motoring forward. All right, thanks. Good night. Okay, and just an FYI, I do have all my circuits in a spreadsheet, what they are, wire gauge, and have I installed them. So as you can see on this list here, I've got 3 yeses, and I'm getting ready to add a few more. So that's all my 110, and down here's all my 12 volt. I've got 3 circuit panels for the 12 volts so far. And I just wanted to share that with you. All right, have a good night.